Jeff, with you saying.
Live from the studio.
I love it. I love that. I love that notion. All right, so a little bit different today because we are doing a show about the show.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
this is sort of our development show. Now, those who've been watching Education Forum over
This would be our fourth season coming up.
Starting
Yes,
fourth season. For 3 seasons, you might notice someone's missing here.
Greg Blaylock's on assignment.
Greg Blaylock's out in the field on
That's
assignment. Where did we send him? Mogadishu? Where did we send him?
Alabama. Same thing, yeah.
There you go, same thing. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we today we're just going to talk about the upcoming show and what we're going to do with it because as you know, or maybe you don't, Columbus State Television is real. It is coming. It will be launched on local cable and in other outlets. Of course, it's always on the web. And we're starting season 4, Jeff.
Season 4.
Education 4. I tell you, it's just it's an exciting time for us. So we wanted to get together and just talk a little bit about Education Forum, and a little bit later in the show, we're going to show some clips from some of the past episodes.
A highlight reel. Okay.
And maybe talk about some of those kind of things because, listen, you have had just a wonderful selection of guests over 3 years.
We have.
Now, let me ask you a couple questions.
All right.
Okay.
Excuse me.
I'm thinking, and maybe the viewers are not completely familiar with Education Forum, but they will be when we get out there. We're going in homes on MediaCom and out in the world. So, as you think back over Education Forum, I mean, 3 years.
3 years. Streaming live. The first shows.
Yeah, I know. It's been a really great show, and I've been fortunate to be a part of some of those, but also on the background and recording these and putting them out. And what comes to mind about some shows? Which are some of the shows that when I say, what do you remember about Education Forum? Which one of those shows or guests and situations that come to mind?
Well, I always think of our very first show. And the reason I think of that first show is because we got somebody that would be on with us.
Right.
And they took a flyer on Education Forum, and it went very well.
Well, you're right.
And again, it was streaming live.
Right.
And you do the countdown at that time, and we would go live. And
we actually went live with that.
That's
show.
right.
Now, that's a lot of pressure. I mean, we're recording this one today, but we're going to do more and more live stuff coming.
I like the live stuff. I mean, that was a real adrenaline rush at the time. And what we didn't realize is that the mics would be live. And so we're goofing around before we get ready to shoot, and everybody's talking, and it's streaming live around the world.
Well, so. I tell you, one of the things that made that show so great were just the all the shows. Was the interaction between you and Greg with your guests?
Oh, and the guests, they made it. They made it because we had some really great people. But I'm thinking, again, the first season, we had people that said, okay, I'll be on, and then it went very well.
And they didn't know what to expect.
Well, and neither did we.
All right. All right. So.
You never know where it's going to go.
Right.
And, you ask them questions, and they just went. And they carried us.
They did a great job. But here's the format of the show, for those who are just kind of tuning into this, is that it was an hour-long show. This was an hour.
It was an hour. Yeah.
It's incredible. And later as we went through probably in the third season, we looked at having 3 20-minute segments.
Yes, and we've talked about that, yeah.
There are commercials and the promotional materials between those segments. But I tell you, when you're on for an hour on a show as a guest, that is a lot of pressure.
Well, that's a lot of pressure, and that's what I wanted to talk about, is changing the show format.
Okay, all right.
So we bring on a different guest for a 20-minute segment.
Okay.
I don't care how good you are. You get a little stale after 30.
Yeah, okay.
I don't
know if missed to that.
It's no one's fault. It's just, how much can I pump you, and how much pressure do we want to put on you?
Right.
So, you can tolerate people for 20 minutes, and if it's not going well, we bring on another guest.
Well,
or if it's going well, you extend it.
Well, you've got a really good point, but I want to play point-counterpoint.
Okay.
You did this so well, and I learned from you, by the way, how to do this. It's very good. Now, 20-minute segment, so you can get a lot out of 20 minutes. And by the way, our attention span, our adult attention span, may not be much longer than that.
Exactly.
You can really pay attention and get information from watching a show.
We could call this show the short attention span theater.
Well, we could. That might be another one. I think maybe a lot of
Someone
our shows
has that. Yeah, we can't steal that.
But you know, on the counter side of that, you were able to, and I'm going to ask Mishak and Louisa and Omo, who are here in the studio running the equipment behind the scenes here for us and recording this very show.
You know what you didn't mention?
Yes.
How nice the studio looks.
Well, you know,
the new studio, the new digs here, and
well, yeah,
I mean, for the first 3 years, we did the best we could with what we had, and it was great. But look at this.
Right.
I mean,
well,
this is wonderful.
I mean, we've done a lot. There's been a lot of support for our studio here from the College of Education, from the Provost's office, from the department. And we're very fortunate to have these new digs here.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's
studio.
wonderful.
So we're going to continue that. So thanks for mentioning it. Well, the counterpoint to this, I think, and I mentioned Omo and Louisa and Mishak in the studio. We've got in our DDR2 a couple of clips that I want to play in just a moment. So if those guys will kind of get those ready, give you give our audience just a view of some of the previous shows.
Sure,
so
sure,
talking about. But my point is this: an hour with an individual, you can really get down to brass tacks. You know, you do the introduction.
Right.
You
Right.
know, you interview professors.
Right, we did.
And you'll say, well, what was it like? Where did you get your education? Tell me about your background.
Sure.
And then they got into their research. And then they got into other things about, you know, being a professor and their
True. We did that.
vision
Yeah.
and what they did. And so, for somebody who really wanted to get to know a person, wow, an hour with them, you got a lot.
Let's bring them back. Let's bring them back. You know, let's do a 20-minute,
Okay.
and if it's going well, extend it out.
All right.
And
all right.
you know, and if it's starting to drag a little, let's bring on the next guest.
All right,
But schedule
all right,
three.
all right. One
you
more
know?
point. One more point
Yeah.
on your 20 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm with
It
you.
could be a 30-minute segment.
Okay.
I mean, if it's going, or make it a 40. You know.
Okay. Because it might be that you just get into that point and the 20-minute timer starts to go.
No,
and you got,
keep rolling.
All right.
See, here's my thought.
Yeah.
You schedule it as if it's 3 20-minute segments. So you've got 3 guests.
Right.
Okay? And if the first one's just rolling,
Right.
you just keep it going and you say to that third guest off camera, we're going to have to wait and record you later.
You know, they do that, like on the
just
Johnny
like,
Carson,
exactly,
some of
that's what I'm
those,
thinking.
Letterman and some of the others, Jay Leno and so forth, that, you know, you're in the green room waiting.
That's right.
And, sorry, you have to come back in another.
But the nice thing is, we could still, after we finished up,
That's real television.
come in and do another 20-minute segment for the next one.
Well,
So we could-
it's a good
we could do
point.
that,
Now,
yeah.
I will say this, that a 20-minute segment means that there's more work for you
Oh,
and your co-host.
Exactly. We got to be on
Greg
on
Blaylock.
target right away.
You
We
have
do.
anything
We have
to
to bring-
say about Greg Blaylock? Can we just kind of throw him under the bus while we do that?
We probably should. You know, this is the man that usually makes sure I'm here on time.
Yeah.
You know,
Greg's got some
he does this
penetrating
schedule.
questions.
Yeah,
He's
he does.
usually on topic, and but today, you know, I tell you what, we're gonna just pass. We won't say anything
Well-
negative right now. We'll throw him under the bus.
Well,
later.
you know, he's doing a field assignment now,
Yeah.
gathering information for the upcoming season. You can't dig it.
Think
You
he's
can't.
doing something right? Is he
No,
doing that?
I'm lying. I
Okay,
just
all
thought
right,
I'd
here
say
we go.
that. You know,
Yeah,
it sounded
take a
good.
nap.
You know.
Somebody go wake him up. All right, so here's what I was going to say. The two of you really have to get your questions really targeted and focused
Yes.
for that
Yes.
guest. In other words, you can't go with 10 minutes of tell me your background.
Or
go
just
too
do
far
that.
in one direction.
Or just a 20-minute on you.
Okay.
You talk about yourself for 20 minutes. We ask some questions, and we say, "Thanks, Mike, for coming in today."
Okay.
And you know, we'll be back right after this. And you break to a commercial. You come back. You got a new guest. You introduce a new guest. You go on.
Okay. All right.
You know,
All right.
I'm just thinking.
No, I mean,
But
it sounds perfect.
you make it dynamic, depending on how the people are.
Well-
you know, sometimes you're going to get somebody on, and you're not going to drag information out of them. And if that's the
there's
case,
some people that we'll talk about this another way. And I don't want to run in a negative way.
oh no, and I didn't mean it that way.
But being
No.
on television is a lot of pressure. When you come under these cameras, sometimes
Yes.
I've been on
Yes.
and I've forgotten my name. I don't know what to say.
That's why I write it down.
Okay.
You know, I've got this script here. You know, and
But you think about a guest who is, and we talked about this before with professors who go up and teach.
Mm-hmm.
If a professor is a guest, they teach in front of sometimes small, large, medium crowds of and audiences of students in
Sure.
the classroom, yet come in here and it's a little more difficult. It's just a strange environment to be on this side of the cameras sometimes.
or you can't get them on.
Or their schedule is so packed.
Or not even schedule. It's like, oh no, I can do it in front of a class, but I can't do it in front of a camera. Oh no.
Want to be there.
You know.
Might say something, right? That they might say they're afraid maybe they'll say something that they wanted to say it a different way or not at all, maybe.
And it makes for good television.
Unfortunately, that's never stopped the two of you.
No. We'll talk about anything, and we do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So 20-minute segments. I think that's.
But with it being flexible.
Right.
I mean, if you're good, we're talking about something. We break for commercial. We come back. We're still with you.
Right.
We do that.
Okay.
And then
well,
if it winds down after another 10, we thank you for coming. We bring on the next one. We do it that way.
As a producer of some of these shows as we're coming up here.
For most of these shows.
For most of these. This is my pleasure to do this kind of thing, and I'm looking forward to Columbus State Television really kind of celebrating all the great talent that we have out here on the campus, both on the main campus and down.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Faculty, our staff. I'm really looking forward to that. But as a producer, one of the things I know, when you do have a show that's broken into those 20-minute segments, they can be an entire show with 3 different guests.
Yes. Yes.
A show that maybe is 2 30-minute segments.
Yes.
Or those individual 20-minute segments can be standalone shows. You can pop those up as, and put those out there at a time that might fit the programming schedule in a good.
And I know you're going to be needing to do that with the upcoming format change and all that. But if you do a break at 20, always, commercial break, come back, could be another segment right then. So I think that'll work. I really do.
Well, I'll tell you, Jeff, I'm real excited about this project because, as you may know, I've been talking to a lot of people on campus, and we're going to continue to talk to both faculty and staff and administration and others who work here at Columbus State University here in Columbus, Georgia, to think about coming up with a show of their own.
Sure.
Now, that's what's exciting about this. We now have a television studio, and we can create television shows.
Oh,
you
absolutely.
don't need $500,000.
No.
You don't need all of. We have the equipment. We have the know-how. We've trained folks.
You've got the people, the techs. Oh yeah.
We've got great tech.
We do.
Here.
We do. We've always had great tech folks.
I tell you, we've been very fortunate with that. And at a university, these are This is student-driven.
People don't understand that. They think they're all professionals, and they act very professional. I'm not taking anything away from them, but they are all students.
Yeah, and they bring a lot of talent. Believe me, they bring a lot of talent. And this I would say this too, that the group of students that are coming up are very tech savvy. And they can,
very much so. Yeah.
Really adapt to a new situation, bring in their skills, learn on new equipment and new processes that make things work here. So I'm looking forward to that. So the idea of anyone can have a television show here.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't want to have a TV show because that's not my thing, but I want to be on Education Forum.
That'd be great.
Let's say I'm somebody listening to this show and say, I could get up there and talk like those two guys. I got some things to say. Where would they start? How would they contact you or Greg?
Well, they could always do that, or we have a producer, and they can always contact the studio and talk to our producer, and do some scheduling that way.
Right.
We want to open it up now that we're going to do segments. We can bring on more guests. We can do that. And
well, now have you guys thought about this? Because we're doing this show in the studio today, and we're here in Jordan Hall, 218. Jordan Hall, second floor in the College of Education and Health Professions. And we've been focused on, and you can see this in the background from our little intro, education. That's what we're looking at.
That's right. That's right.
But what about on location? What about taking the camera crew, Mishak and Omo and Daniel and Louisa and myself and all those, and going out on location for a segment for education.
We've never done that. We've never done that. We've wanted to do that since season 1, remember? We always talked about Skyping somebody in and being able to, bring on guests that way. Well, and we didn't have the capability then, but we do now.
Right. Now, Misha, can you go to camera 2 and camera 1? I want to see just what we're doing. You probably can't see the TV screen. You can see it a little bit there, just in the corner. All right,
there it is. Yeah.
Now, that television is part of the studio equipment. It is actually running a piece of video now and repeating video for us, and we set that up prior to this broadcast. but we can actually Skype people in on those monitors, high definition, and Skype them in. And we do have HD cameras that we can loan people and give out. A lot of people already have that on their equipment.
Some of us do, yes.
And yes, and so we can bring people in. So thank you, Misha. Oh, all right. So Luis has just brought up.
So we're Skyping him in?
Now, yeah, no, we've got this. You can see through the on this monitor down below. You see these little icons. Well, that tells you that's a computer screen.
Oh, okay.
That is actually from our website, and this is another facet of the studio where we can actually bring up a website, watch video from a website, Skype people in and out, do all of those web conference and do those kind of things here in the studio. But bring that one back up again, Luis, if you don't mind, because one of the things that we were talking about earlier is Greg Blaylock, and you know it's Jeff and Greg doing the show, and so Greg is like you said, out on assignment.
We could just hold up a picture of him and just,
yeah, that was V8, wasn't it, guys, over there? Or do we move from the website? All right, that's all right. If we can't bring it up, that's quite all right. But those, you got a quick glimpse of Dr. Blaylock. He's very instrumental in asking all of those pointed questions.
Oh, absolutely,
and counterpoint to your questions, I may add. Sometimes the guests may be between the two of you.
They have been at times.
Both firing questions.
Yes, we have.
I've actually been in on
yes,
that
you were. A time or two. Yes, yes.
Just a little bit. Well, there you go. Yeah, it looks like you got a haircut that day, you know?
It does.
Now, that is actually from the website in the College of Education Health Professions, and a lot of the faculty have video on their faculty staff page that you can click on and hear him talk. Right now, we don't have that set up. I don't believe we have audio into that. Otherwise, we'd play that video.
Sure.
But thanks you guys for showing us up. That's Dr. Blaylock. He'll be back. We're going to start this show very soon. And both Jeff and Greg have done a great job in producing and actually being on the show as a talent and bringing in guests. And,
well, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, it's really been good. And, you know, as a matter of fact, why don't we take a look at DDR2? And we've got a couple of segments just kind of queued up. And guys, if you'll allow me to if you'll just play the first one in that list, and then we may stop it before the end. But if you'll go switch over to DDR.
It was very important to me, and this again is cliche, is to want to give back for all those folks who saw me through to this end.
Sure.
That I would give back as best I could. When I got to this level, and so my mission over all these years has been to do whatever it is I can to advance the well-being and the goals of my students in whatever capacity they have. So it really is a labor of love. It's not labor like it was when I was in it.
Love.
That's right.
Yeah, it was real labor.
And it's it's just wonderful to see somebody who starts out with one set of skills, but by the end of their journey, they've got a whole set of new skills, and they're going on and working in congressional.
Greg
Doman, Associate Provost.
Right.
Associate
Provost,
yes.
and the Director of Graduate Studies.
Yes.
All right,
and we're going to have him on again.
Okay, that's a great idea. He did a great job.
And he's asked to be back, and we want to have him, so yeah.
Well, there's as we know here at Columbia State University, our graduate programs are the fastest growing programs.
Yes, they are.
In the university. So many people in the community and in the area, region even, have gotten their undergraduate degree, started work, and so many of them have come back for their master's degree or specialist degree,
sure,
and now
sure.
even their doctorate in curriculum and education leadership here at Columbia State.
I don't believe everybody knows that, though. That's why we're going to bring him on, so we can talk about that and look at some of those numbers, because I think people will be quite surprised what's going on in our, our university.
I think so too. He did a really good job of kind of setting it up, and of course there are now graduate expos out there and other materials and information. But this would be a great, should I say, forum.
Forum, huh? Wow, I like that.
All right, I tell you what, since we're on a roll here, let's take a look at the second clip of DDR2. Go ahead and play that one. I'm not sure who this person is, but I'm pretty sure that DDR2, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Students whose first language is English, they want them to become bilingual by learning Spanish.
Okay.
And so by the time, I think it's like a K through 12 school, I think. And so by the time they graduate, they should be able to read and speak and write in a second language, right? And they talk about how that helps them be more well-rounded students when they move on to the rest of their life, right? So just that type of emphasis is also important. I think the lens is more about Latino students.
All right, that was Dawn Fraser.
It sure was. Dr. Dawn Fraser.
Yeah, now she
was brand new. Brand new at the time.
Came. All right.
And we got her on, and it was a good show. We did a full hour on her. Yeah, we sure did. Yeah, it was great.
It sounded like you guys had a good rapport and really were kind of digging in. And I don't know, we couldn't hear the audio on that, but I know that she's very interested in writing and research, and she teaches in foundations and research foundations here in counseling foundations and leadership. And so another just example of how cool the we have a phone ringing. That's pretty interesting.
We're taking a call right now.
Take that call. There it is. Louis over there. You can go ahead and just take that call outside. I guess we'll come back. You know, this is
a live call-in show.
This is a live call-in show. We actually are going to talk about that as we come as we move forward, because it's one of the ideas. I'm picking off on a couple ideas.
Me too.
I want to come back.
Okay.
So, but we are on a roll, Mishak. So let's go back to DDR2, and I think there's a third clip in that list, and let's just see who. This is another example from earlier.
Content or math.
Yes.
But they don't know how to teach it to children. And we go back to developmental. They don't have the understanding of human growth and development that a teacher does. A teacher studies the growth and development of a child. They study how to teach math. You know, there's a difference between teaching math to first graders and 8th graders and 12th graders.
Absolutely.
How do you set up your lesson so that the kids start to cue in on what it is that you're doing? How do you know to look at certain vocabulary and teach the vocabulary? Lots of
Very interesting.
The new dean of the College of Education, when she was brand new at the time. And
so that was very interesting that you guys were interviewing people who were new coming in, and you really got a good idea of what they bring. And it was interesting too, because those of us who've been around here for a while get to really meet that person, not just in the day-to-day activity, but we get to sit back and let them talk and tell. And you guys interviewing them allows us to get much more information about who those people are and what they're doing and their vision.
Well, you have very little time in your day-to-day job to get to know the people you work with.
Right.
So this way, we were talking about the new faculty and the new staff and the new dean, and we just brought them on so people could meet them, and they told their story. And you never know when you're bringing on the dean of the college how that's going to roll, your boss, you know.
Right, you're talking to your boss. Be careful about those questions.
Well, and it's always nice when you screw up her name when you start the show, which I did. But it rolled. It went well.
Well, that's just part of it. I know we are humans and human beings here. We make mistakes and we kind of roll through these things. But once you're comfortable on the set and you're talking with someone, some of those things are not as important as maybe we thought of.
We think it's important at the time, I just signed my death sentence. But anyway, no, it went very well.
Right.
It did.
Give me that on that. All right, so so those were just 3 examples from Education Forum in the past, and we have on our on-demand page here just a long list of those shows. They're on YouTube.
Yes.
You can get them there. They're about to be on iTunes. And so there's some on Vimeo, there's some on all of these, Justin TV and Ustream, all of those media outlets.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we're really looking at kind of putting those out there, and then you can watch them on demand. You missed the show, so you can kind of come back at your own schedule, at your own pace, and pull that up.
Okay.
And watch it when you're ready.
Now with the new studio,
yes,
shows will have their own time slot, right?
Right. That's one of the things that we are really pushing for, and there's some equipment and support that we're going to need in order to really schedule shows at certain times of the day. But there will be regular time slots throughout the week for shows.
Okay.
We're also planning to repeat those shows at different times, days throughout the month, so that if you miss something and it's really, really important and we want you to have the opportunity to see it again. It'll come back up in that time slot. But
Great.
Education Forum will have a regular time slot on the schedule.
That's excellent. That's
yeah,
excellent.
I think so. Looking forward to that.
The old 5 a.m. You know?
Yes, they'll
Sunday.
Be, late night. You know, somebody was talking the other day about the library now stays open
Yeah.
till
2 in the morning. 2 in the morning. Yeah.
So we may have to have some shows on our program schedule for that 1 a.m. crowd.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I threw out
The Insomnia Theater.
Well, I'm wondering. I was thinking about study skills, late night study skills.
Late night study skill. Well, and Einstein's will be open so they can get coffee and they can stay up.
Well, it's interesting that universities have changed so much. The student body has changed. The new generation of students coming in, and they're expecting a number of things that will change this paradigm that we've been teaching in for a while. You know, a lot of us are putting courses online. We have hybrid courses, online courses, face-to-face courses, and all of those kinds. That use of technology is extremely important to the teaching profession these days, and the students expect it. So they're looking for high-quality video. They're looking for interactive ways to deal with the data and the information, and then that's going to prepare them for the jobs of the future, I think, as well. So it's really interesting time at the university, and that's why I really like having Education Forum on, because you guys can address some of those issues.
Well, you know, when you mentioned that, I was just thinking we got to bring some people on from the library to talk about those changes, talk about what they're doing to make it more accessible to students.
Well, you know, I think I would recommend Mark Flynn. You know, he is the dean of the library now.
Absolutely.
He has done a wonderful job since he's been in. If you haven't been to Columbus State University's library in the last 6 months or so, you really need to do yourself a favor.
Go in and see those changes.
Because they have moved everything. They've remodeled it. It's more user friendly. You can sit in a group in the pod. You can check out a Google book. What do you call those books in the library? You guys over there.
The e-books?
Chromebooks.
Chromebooks, yes, that's it, yes.
They have the Chromebooks, and you can just check those things out and use them in the library. If you don't have a laptop with you, you can still access the web and so forth.
And with those hours, and with it being more student-friendly, I mean, that's a perfect topic.
I think it's a wonderful asset to the university, and we're going to definitely get those guys on the schedule to come.
Cool, you know,
a little bit more.
I think it'd be great.
There's another big project that I know we've talked about some. I know Greg and I actually have a piece of video. We'll show that in just a second, guys. It's also in video too. That talk about the development of a studio consortium.
Right.
That's an interesting idea. And let me throw that out real quick, Jeff, and you give me your view on it too.
Okay.
You know, we are producing educational materials here in the studio. These are video-based, high-definition, high-quality learning materials. And we, as a small group, started to talk about having that material. When you come in and really do something that you'll use in your classroom, you'll use in your teaching, you'll use in your conferences and professional development and other ways, that material should count toward your promotion and tenure, that should be considered as, you know, the evidence of your ability to teach and do your job well, and and support you for moving up and advancing in the university. And so one of the things that faculty have to do is go through this rank and move up and be supported by the materials and the things that they accomplished and their peers, such as in tenure. And that what we wanted to do with the Studio Consortium is actually put together a paradigm for that would allow materials to be peer-reviewed, video, documentation, and training materials, and mini lectures, and all of the other kind of things that you can talk about, panel discussions and group discussions, that really are research-based or sound from research and literature, and that would serve as another document moving people toward promotion and tenure. So we are building that right now. We're recruiting people and looking at the structure for that. We want to invite people who may be watching this to get in touch with about that, because we're putting together an editorial board. That editorial board, you will, the individual can submit the materials, the video to the board. The board reviews it with certain rubrics and standards, then either approves it or asks them to be resubmitted.
Yes.
Once approved, that can be used for promotion and tenure materials in your portfolio. So that's a challenging but a very interesting project, and I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about that kind of thing?
Well, you mentioned it, and it's a complete paradigm shift that it's going to take a while to get that on board because of that.
Right.
But I've had discussions with you before and with Greg, and we've talked about standards and how that's really something we need to establish because we don't believe anyone else is doing it.
Right.
And it's not going to be the same as looking in the APA manual.
Right. Well, these are all. I mean, most of the materials, and you do have in our standards of excellence the requirement to publish.
Absolutely, we sure do.
In printed journals and the such that are peer reviewed, and so that's a phenomenon. Now, when you think about it, however, there are other parts of the university, other schools, other colleges in the university that maybe performance-based.
Yes.
Such as in the arts, in nursing, in other types of areas where there are some exams, there are some kind of things, but publishing is not the predominant way to show your abilities, worthiness for promotion and tenure. So I think maybe if we looked at some of those and looked at how they're doing it from a performance-based model, that might help us fill that rubric, put those standards together that you're referring to.
Well, we're going to have to do that because it's a complete shift in our thinking. Because we have one way of looking at it now, and we have to get away from that. What we also have to think about is how so many of our journals aren't in print editions.
Exactly.
People are looking at electronic editions, and I think this is just an evolution from there. And when we talk about looking at other fields, performance fields, and looking at their standards, I think that's a very important thing we have to do.
Well, it's a very exciting time for us as we build that, and we're going to...
It brings us guests, too.
Well, absolutely.
You know, we can bring them into another topic. Yes.
Let's, Greg and I sat down and talked about this topic a while back. I'm wondering if we can pull up that piece of video and just play a little bit. You can watch this on ColumbusState.tv on our website. You can go to our On Demand and take a look at it, but guys, if we can...
In an institution of higher education, a big part of our job is advancing the field forward through our research, through translating research into practice, communicating with others, whether they be other professors or our students. A big part of this is communicating it in writing, in print media, in a way that's acceptable to our professional standards.
Yeah, and excuse me to interrupting, but that traditional process has been to do a research project that it ends up in a submission to a peer-reviewed journal, and they reject that or accept it with revisions and so forth, and it has a very orderly structure to it, an introduction, a method section, results, and a discussion and so forth. So that's kind of the traditional method, that a single method really, that we have used to advance people in their promotion and tenure, for example, in their professional growth at the academy, as you say.
That's exactly right. And I'm going to go a step further with that and remind you that we're not just talking about, as professors, communicating our own research and writing traditionally through print media, but the same standards in print media hold.
All right, so there we were in our discussion.
Yes.
And we're going to have more of those because we've got other people very interested.
We really need to have that.
We are bringing in faculty, but we're also bringing in people to consider, in consideration of being a board member, that have television backgrounds and have presentation backgrounds.
Certainly.
Because I think a part of this is not only just kind of the getting the information and the research and the ideas out, but it's also doing it in a professional and high quality, high definition environment that is easy to watch, and you want to kind of take advantage of doing this in a studio environment as well. We're also, by the way, reaching out to other universities in the university system of Georgia, but we're also looking at University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, and some other schools outside in the region to be a part of this consortium. So we're very excited about that.
Excellent, excellent.
Right. So back to the show just a little bit. I mean, what other thoughts do you have about Education Forum?
Well, one of the things we've talked about in the past, but we never could bring it to fruition, was having a blog.
Okay.
Or having a website for the show.
Yes.
So for those that have comments or questions, or say, hey, here's a topic you haven't covered, why don't you do more on this, or why don't you bring on, and so we got to do that. We got to keep that going, or start that up and keep it, and announce it, at the show. If you want to continue this, go out to our website.
Well, yeah, because you guests might be even wanting to say, look, I didn't get to cover this in the depth I wanted, or didn't get to cover this topic.
Right.
Let me go into your blog and add that. And
yes.
Other people can kind of come in and add their comments to it. I think it's
and we talked one time about having call in.
Right.
And we had the call today.
That sounds dangerous a little
but
bit.
Instead of having to call in, we can have them do it right out there on the website, blog it in, and then.
I think a minute ago we had a call in. I don't know what happened to that telephone ringing here. But, that's a very good idea because, sometimes you're just throwing out that material out there and then you're kind of moving on to something else. And really, when we think about it, maybe we needed to spend more time in that area, learn more about it. We want to have that as a potential for folks who are viewing that can actually go in and then talk to the people, talk to you guys.
Yes.
Talk to the guests, be able to communicate with them about what it is that they want to know more about. I do like, we did a show development video with Dr. Dan Rose. He's the director of the Counseling Center, and he came in and we sat and talked about his show coming up, and no one's like Dan. I mean, he's a really good, interesting guy. Does a great job, and he actually was talking about, like a chat room or having someone send in questions that they wanted to ask. Now, it might be a little more difficult in your case, but certainly with a blog, you could follow up with those questions.
We certainly can, and that way, with it going to be a little faster paced show with the segments, there'll be things that people want to find out about, and this way they can continue that discussion. So yeah.
All right, so let's get a website going for Education Forum. And put that as a blog so people can kind of come in and make their comments and those kind of things. I think that's very exciting.
That'll bring it.
Get rolling on that. We'll have to put one of the tech guys in the crew over there on that one.
That's right.
Maybe Louisa. I think she's really good at websites.
Get that set up for us.
All right. So what else do you have in mind for Education
Forum? Well, we were just going through guests that we haven't had before. There's a lot of faculty we haven't talked to. I think we got to bring someone in from Oxbow Meadows. I don't know if they're going to have their own show like they've had in the past. You remember we had the green scene?
We're still, that's another show in development.
Okay.
But we got to regroup a little bit. There have been some changes.
Many changes there,
staff changes and so forth, but we really want to get those in. But they're doing such wonderful work. They have kids from all over coming there and learning about the environment and learning about animals and reptiles. They have a reptile fest, by the way.
Which I've been to a couple of times. So,
a lot of fun things going out with.
And we can, bring Dr. Stanton in. We can bring, a member or two of his staff. We can talk about the latest going on.
Absolutely.
The other thing I was thinking about, we got to bring Sean back.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Sean Cruzen and talk about the Coca-Cola Space Science Center and their nozzle. And I know he's got his own show.
I don't know if there's much going on down at the Coca-Cola Space. No, I'm just kidding.
There's always things going on down there. Yes.
Listen, we were down. Our crew was down at the Coca-Cola Space Science Center last week, and we just dropped in on them, and we talked about that this weekend Space Science is starting.
Right. Okay.
Also for the 4th season.
Right.
And they're getting another brand new telescope.
I didn't know that.
New scope in.
Okay.
They've got so many new things. They
got the shuttle nozzle.
Well, they got the artifacts from NASA. I mean, the shuttle nozzle is amazing. On that, it's been in outer space. I don't know how many times. But also, we were able to see a video that they made where they went to NASA and they were able to get one of the control desks that they used in the space shuttle program, and brought it back, and it's there now at the Coca-Cola Space Science Center. And what Sean let slip was that that particular desk, you know, do you see the desk with the television monitors coming up? And he told me some detail about it, but he also said this desk was also used in the Apollo mission.
Oh, wow. Okay,
So
okay.
that
There's
goes
some real
back a
history
while.
there.
That's
Yeah, yeah. Well,
you gotta
we
have
got to
Sean
get him.
Hess-
Yep.
Oh,
and we can talk about the transition of Venus.
Right.
I mean, that was a big summer project. And,
Oh, they went around the world, Mongolia.
Yes, they did.
Australia, that's what I was thinking. So let me just give you a little tip of asking him some questions, because here it is. Sean Cruzen this term is teaching quantum physics.
Is he really?
He is teaching quantum physics, and that blew me away, because I'm not even sure what question to ask.
I have to do some real research there before we have him on.
The formulas, and I couldn't make any sense out of them, but wow, how cool is that when you're talking about something so science at such a high level like that? And Sean is absolutely the guy to help with that, and that would be fascinating.
And he's a great guest. Great guest to have on. Yes.
He's really an expert. Now, who else do you have?
Well, you know, I was thinking we've got to get out, and we should, of course, have the police on again.
Yes.
Talk to the chief again, because he wanted to come back.
Yes. You know, he has such responsibility out there. The police are on the downtown campus, on the main campus. We've had some incidents along the way.
Yes, we have.
And I'll tell you what, they do a great job of keeping us safe and the safety around here. I tell you what, that you have to have Russ Drew back on
because it's
here.
grown so much, too. It has since we had him on last. So I think that would be another one.
Absolutely.
And I think we should talk about, I was thinking, you know, we ought to bring on Patrick McHenry.
Yes.
And talk about bicycle riding.
Absolutely.
You know, and we ought to talk about other people on campus, to just talk about the trail and things like that. And I know you're a rider.
Well, I know you're a rider.
And we could. Yes. But we both did the President's Ride.
Right.
And I think that would be, you know, something we just talk about of interest, because we got to get people into things like that.
I'll tell you what, you know, the bicycle riding in Columbus has really taken off. We have great shops around, but we've got the rails to trails out there. You see more and more families and kids and adults and out there on the trail constantly. And what a great experience to get outdoors and it's a lovely trail.
It is. We could interview people that ride, go out on site, do some of that. I mean, things of that nature wouldn't be horrible, you know.
That sounds really good. I know some of those folks at the bike shop. I have to get them around.
Yes, and I see there's a new bike shop just opened in town, so we got that. But I was thinking we ought to get the folks from the rec center back in.
Oh, the
Rick Craven and his people and talk about it. Yes,
all those guys are just doing a wonderful thing in that rec center. It's a great way to exercise, keep yourself fit, and they have so many activities.
Well, and we had them on when it was brand new, and it's been a year, a little longer than a year. So let's bring them back and update that a little bit.
Good.
I think we've got to get out there and look at some of those new faculty that we don't know yet in other departments and get them in here.
Absolutely, that's a very good idea, and we do have, there's a big variety of cultures here at the university.
Yes.
For not only students, but also in faculty that we haven't gotten a chance to meet.
We sure haven't.
And this would be a great, again, forum to talk with them about. You know, we're doing some television show development here, and we're doing some work with the students. And
okay.
So, when we were talking about culture just a second ago, I was thinking that we have we have a crew here in our studio who come from different countries.
Yes.
We have some of our technical guys over there from Kenya, from Nigeria, from Brazil, even as far away as New Jersey.
There you go.
We've got to get those guys, and they're going to talk. They're talking actually about a show, an Africa show, about their, and
that'd be cool.
Letting us learn some things about that. So you might even have students on your show. Now, I didn't mention that before.
You and I talked about that when we did the President's Ride.
Right.
There were some exchange students here, and I said, hey, we got to bring on some of these exchange students. They could talk about what's it like coming here to Columbus, Georgia, and what are they getting out of it?
Yeah, people were talking about the international students. When they first get here, that first term, that's got to be a tremendous transition.
Oh,
to come not
it has
only
to be.
Come to the school, but to come from another country to come to the school and what that's like. You know, just last week, Neil McCrillis came in the studio and brought Nicholas Carr, a guest here on campus. He's his book, The Shallows, which was, and you can see the interview that we were able to do with Nick Carr, Pulitzer Prize nominee for the book that Shallow's talking about attention span.
Yes.
And talking about how all of this information and overload of data is affecting our lives, and we're skimming through things.
So no one has any depth, but they have a lot of breadth.
Right, yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Those kind of things. And I'm thinking, too, that with Education Forum, when we have a guest that just happens to coincide with when you're doing a show and they're coming on campus, we
got to do it.
Big names coming.
We have, and we've got to do that. We've got to have them on. We've got to do more of it, and we have the capability now.
Yeah,
so we can do that.
If we did something on location, just a quick clip with them to bring back in and talk about it. But if they could come in the studio, how great!
It'd be perfect.
Yeah,
another topic, as I was thinking, we're really pushing servant leadership.
Yes.
Why don't we have the servant leadership people on?
Oh,
and they just opened that playground that they raised money for.
Yes.
So we could do clips of that. We could talk about some of those things.
I think that's a great idea. And we also, Dr. Tigner, who runs the honors program that is supported by the Tower Society, those donors and supporters in the community and graduates of CSU are giving back to the university, support the honors program, and we were able to film some of those students and talking about the benefits that they've received from the generous giving of those people in the Tower Society. And to have the honors society, maybe Dr. Tigner come and talk about that.
That'd be a great idea, and to talk about that and really let people know the amount of support our students get from the community. So I think that would be a great idea.
Well, one of the things that as we develop our shows is that we are looking campus-wide at all the different organizations and centers, colleges, and talent that we have here. And as I begin to, I'm still doing, I'm uncovering those sounds, at least from mine. They've been there all the time and everybody else knows it. I don't know them, but I'm going out and getting those people to come in and talk with us on camera. That would be a great way for us to kind of say, hey, and make some recommendations about guests for Education Forum as well.
I was thinking of bringing the president on again.
Yes,
on a regular basis. Maybe once a month, have him do a segment, 20, 30-minute segment, so, he can come out and just talk about some of the latest things he's working on, some of the new ideas around. I don't know if he's interested, but I thought, that wouldn't be bad. Give him this forum.
But one of the things about our president, he's good to go on most of these.
He is.
The thing I know is that when he does come in, we hear about all of these projects that are happening, all of these things that are going on that may not get the front headlines.
That's right.
But they're actually moving and generating change on the campus. So we're definitely, I think it's a good idea.
I think, and if he could do it regularly, we can keep everybody up on that. So I think, it'd be worth a walk. Okay. Yeah, worth a shot there.
All right.
I just think with the new show, more variety, more vitality, more of a vision, really, pump it up a little bit more, and that's what I'm looking forward to. So
I think I'll tell you why I'm really excited about this, and I want to thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for doing this, man.
Opportunity to just talk about Education Forum. It's fourth season. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to watch our show today. As this is what we call the development show. Although Education Forum has been developed now, this is our fourth year. So,
evolving.
But it is evolving, and I think it's going to be stronger this time. It's going to be out on cable TV and community. It's going to be on our website, and it's going to be on the television throughout the buildings here, and on both our main campus and downtown campus, and all of the web, social media kind of outlets. So. Hopefully you'll get a chance to tune in to Education Forum with Dr. Jeff Conklin and Dr. Greg Blaylock as they do a weekly show here that really involves all aspects of education, and you get to meet those people and learn a lot about what they're doing here on campus. And if you're watching this and you want to be on the show, you contact us and we'll
here in the studio
and get this thing going. So, Jeff, thank you so much for
Yes, sir, Mike. Thank you.
Well, that's good. And I tell you what, you guys stay tuned. There's more to come, and we'll see you next time.